The ancient walls of Thornwick Palace held secrets like a vault holds treasures, and Captain Marcus Vale had heard more than his fair share during his 15 years serving the Royal Guard. But nothing had prepared him for what he overheard that gray October morning when the mist clung to the palace gardens like ghostly fingers. Marcus had been making his routine security rounds through the East Wing when the sound of hushed voices drew his attention to the Queen Consort's private study. The heavy oak door stood slightly ajar, and through the narrow gap he could see Lady Cordelia Ashworth, the Queen Consort, pacing behind her mahogany desk while speaking into her phone. "Yes, Jonathan, I understand the legal implications." Lady Cordelia's voice carried a sharp edge that Marcus had never heard before. "But the Wales family situation has become problematic. They're gaining too much public sympathy, and that threatens everything we've worked toward." Marcus felt his blood run cold. The Wales family, Prince Edmund and Princess Catherine, along with their 3 children, had become beloved figures in the kingdom. Their charitable work and down-to-earth approach to royal duties had won hearts across the nation and beyond. What could Lady Cordelia possibly mean by calling them problematic? The captain pressed himself against the stone wall, knowing he should leave but unable to move. His duty was to protect the royal family, but which family members was he protecting them from? "The recording from last month's private dinner is our insurance policy," Lady Cordelia continued, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she paced. "Prince Edmund's comments about the monarchy needing significant reforms and Princess Catherine's agreement about outdated traditions give us everything we need. The public won't stand for royals who question the very institution they represent." Marcus's mind raced. He remembered that dinner. It had been a private family gathering, completely informal. The Wales family often spoke candidly about modernizing certain aspects of royal protocol, but always with the intention of making the monarchy more relevant and accessible to contemporary society. They had never questioned the fundamental institution itself. "No, Jonathan, we can't wait any longer." Lady Cordelia's voice grew more insistent. "King Harold's health is declining faster than the palace is admitting. When the transition happens, Edmund will be in direct line for significantly more influence. We need to neutralize that possibility before it becomes reality." The captain's throat went dry. King Harold, Lady Cordelia's husband of 8 years, had indeed been showing signs of illness lately, though the palace had attributed his reduced public appearances to a busy schedule. But Marcus had noticed the tremor in the king's hands during recent ceremonies, the way he sometimes paused mid-sentence, as if searching for words that wouldn't come. "The Wales family's popularity is their weakness," Lady Cordelia continued. "The higher they rise in public estimation, the further they have to fall. And when that recording surfaces, along with the other evidence we've been gathering, the fall will be spectacular enough to remove them from any position of real influence." Marcus felt sick. The other evidence Lady Cordelia mentioned could only mean one thing. They had been manufacturing a case against the Wales family for months, possibly longer. Every interaction, every private conversation, every casual comment was being weaponized against them. "Yes, I know Catherine is pregnant again." Lady Cordelia's tone grew colder. "That just makes the timing more critical. Public sympathy for a pregnant princess will be at its peak, but it also means she'll be more vulnerable, less likely to fight back aggressively when the accusations surface. Pregnancy has a way of making women softer, more compliant." The calculated cruelty in her voice made Marcus's hands clench into fists. Princess Catherine was indeed expecting their 4th child, and the announcement had brought joy to the entire kingdom. The idea that Lady Cordelia would use this happy news as part of her strategy was beyond comprehension. "The lawyer in Switzerland has assured me that the financial records can be interpreted in various ways," Lady Cordelia said, settling into her leather chair. "Prince Edmund's charitable foundation has handled millions in donations over the years. It wouldn't be difficult to suggest irregularities, especially if we time the revelation carefully with other scandals." Marcus realized he was witnessing the planning of a systematic destruction of the Wales family's reputation. The charitable foundation Lady Cordelia mentioned had been Prince Edmund's passion project for over a decade, providing educational opportunities for underprivileged children across the Commonwealth. The foundation's books were pristine, audited annually by 3 independent firms, but Marcus understood that with the right spin and timing, even legitimate transactions could be made to appear suspicious. "The children will be collateral damage, I'm afraid," Lady Cordelia continued with chilling matter-of-factness. "But they're young enough to recover from the scandal, especially if they're separated from their parents' influence early enough. Private boarding schools, limited public exposure, careful management of their image as they grow older." The casual way she discussed tearing children away from their parents made Marcus's stomach turn. Prince Edmund and Princess Catherine's children. Princess Isabella, age 12, Prince Alexander, age 9, and Prince Michael, age 6, were known for their close family bond. The idea of deliberately destroying that bond for political gain was monstrous. "Lady Cordelia," came another voice from within the study, and Marcus recognized it as Sir Reginald Blackthorne, the Queen Consort's private secretary and closest advisor. "The timeline you're proposing is ambitious. Are you certain we can control the narrative effectively?" "Reginald, I've been planning this for 3 years," Lady Cordelia replied with confidence that sent chills down Marcus's spine. "Every piece of evidence, every media contact. When we move, it will be swift and decisive. The Wales family won't know what hit them until it's far too late to respond effectively." 3 years. Marcus felt the full weight of that revelation. Lady Cordelia had been planning the destruction of the Wales family since shortly after her marriage to King Harold. It wasn't a reaction to recent events, or a sudden power grab. It was a long-term strategy that had been unfolding right under everyone's noses. "The key is making it appear organic," Sir Reginald noted. "If it looks like a coordinated attack, public sympathy might shift back to them." "Exactly why we're using multiple vectors," Lady Cordelia agreed. "The financial irregularities will surface through an anonymous whistleblower at the Foundation. The recorded dinner conversation will be leaked by a supposed member of the household staff. The personal scandals will emerge through seemingly unrelated tabloid investigations. By the time anyone realizes it's coordinated, the damage will be irreversible." Marcus's mind was spinning as he tried to process the scope of the conspiracy. Multiple fabricated scandals, coordinated media manipulation, false evidence. It was a level of deception that seemed impossible within the usually honorable confines of the palace. The sound of footsteps in the corridor behind him snapped Marcus back to immediate awareness of his dangerous position. He quickly moved away from the door, continuing his security round as if nothing had happened. But his mind was racing with the implications of what he had learned. As he walked through the palace corridors, Marcus observed the familiar faces of the staff with new suspicion. How many of them were part of Lady Cordelia's network? How long had this conspiracy been growing within the palace walls? And most importantly, what was he going to do with the information he had accidentally acquired? The weight of his duty pressed down on him like a physical burden. As a member of the royal guard, he had sworn an oath to protect all members of the royal family. But what happened when one part of the family was actively plotting against another? His loyalty had always been clear-cut before this moment. But now he found himself in an impossible position. That evening, as Marcus returned to his modest apartment in the palace staff quarters, he sat at his small writing desk and stared at a blank piece of paper. Should he warn Prince Edmund and Princess Catherine? Should he report what he had heard to King Harold, despite the man's deteriorating health? Should he take his concerns to someone outside the palace entirely? Each option carried enormous risks. If Lady Cordelia discovered that he had overheard her conversation, Marcus had no doubt that his own safety would be in jeopardy. But if he did nothing and allowed the conspiracy to proceed, he would be complicit in the destruction of a family he had come to deeply respect during his years of service. The captain spent the night staring out his window at the Wales family's wing of the palace, watching the warm lights in their windows and thinking about the children sleeping peacefully inside, unaware that their entire world was about to be deliberately dismantled by someone they trusted as family. 3 days had passed since Marcus overheard the devastating conversation in Lady Cordelia's study, and the weight of his knowledge had transformed every interaction within the palace walls into a potential minefield. He found himself studying faces more carefully, analyzing conversations for hidden meanings, and questioning loyalties he had never thought to doubt before. The morning brought an unexpected development when Marcus was summoned to the office of Sir Reginald Blackthorne. The Queen Consort's private secretary had never requested a meeting with him before, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken as he knocked on the heavy wooden door. "Come in, Captain Vale." Sir Reginald's voice carried its usual cultured tone, but Marcus detected something else underneath. a calculating quality that he had never noticed before. The office was decorated in rich burgundy and gold, with portraits of previous monarchs watching from gilded frames on the walls. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Marcus remained standing at attention, his years of military training keeping his expression neutral despite the turmoil in his mind. Sir Reginald gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Please sit. I wanted to discuss your security rotation schedule. Lady Cordelia has requested some adjustments to the coverage in the East Wing." Marcus settled into the chair, every nerve alert. "What kind of adjustments, sir?" "Nothing dramatic," Sir Reginald said, pulling out a file and making a show of reviewing papers. "But she's noticed that certain areas have been experiencing inconsistent patrol timing. The study corridor, for instance. She's concerned about privacy during her business calls." The message was crystal clear. Somehow, they knew he had been in that corridor during Lady Cordelia's phone conversation. Marcus felt sweat begin to form on his forehead, but he kept his voice steady. "I can certainly review the patrol routes, sir. Security is our primary concern." "Indeed it is," Sir Reginald agreed, his pale eyes studying Marcus with uncomfortable intensity. "Lady Cordelia values discretion above all else, Captain. She believes that a truly professional security team understands the difference between protecting the royal family and unnecessarily inserting themselves into private matters." Marcus nodded carefully. "Of course, sir. Professional boundaries are essential." "Excellent." Sir Reginald closed the file and leaned back in his chair. "I'm also pleased to inform you that your dedication hasn't gone unnoticed. Lady Cordelia has recommended you for a special assignment, a security assessment tour of our Commonwealth facilities. 3 months in Australia, excellent career advancement opportunity." The offer hit Marcus like a physical blow. 3 months in Australia would remove him from the palace entirely during what he suspected would be the crucial period of Lady Cordelia's plan against the Wales family. It was exile disguised as promotion, and they both knew it. "That's very generous," Marcus managed to say. "When would this assignment begin?" "Next week, actually. Rather urgent need, I'm afraid. But I'm sure you understand the importance of Commonwealth security cooperation." Marcus felt trapped. Refusing the assignment would confirm their suspicions about what he had overheard, but accepting it would abandon the Wales family to their fate. "May I have some time to consider the logistics, sir? I'd need to arrange coverage for my current duties." "Of course, but I'll need an answer by tomorrow morning." Sir Reginald's smile was polite but cold. "I trust you'll make the right decision, Captain." As Marcus left the office, his mind raced through his limited options. The walls seemed to be closing in around him, and he realized that Lady Cordelia's network was more extensive and better informed than he had imagined. If they had detected his presence during one overheard conversation, what else were they monitoring? That afternoon brought another shock when Marcus encountered Princess Catherine in the palace gardens. She was walking alone, her hand resting on her growing belly, and she looked unusually pensive. When she noticed him, she offered her characteristic warm smile, but Marcus could see strain around her eyes. "Good afternoon, Captain Vale," she said, pausing near a fountain where they could speak privately. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Indeed, Your Royal Highness." "Are you feeling well?" Marcus asked, noting her slightly pale complexion. Princess Catherine hesitated, then glanced around to ensure they weren't being overheard. "Captain, may I ask you something in confidence?" Marcus's heart rate spiked. "Of course, Your Highness." "Have you noticed anything unusual in the palace lately? Any changes in atmosphere or behavior among the staff?" The question confirmed Marcus's worst fears. Princess Catherine was already sensing that something was wrong, even if she didn't know the specific nature of the threat. "What kind of changes do you mean, Your Highness?" "It's difficult to explain," she said, wrapping her shawl more tightly around her shoulders. "But I've noticed some staff members seem nervous around us lately. Conversations that stop when Edmund or I enter a room, and there have been some unusual questions from people claiming to be reporters, asking about our charitable work and personal finances." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The media campaign was already beginning just as Lady Cordelia had planned. "Have you discussed these concerns with Prince Edmund?" "I've mentioned some of it, but he's been so busy with his foundation work lately, and I don't want to worry him unnecessarily, especially with the baby coming." Princess Catherine placed her hand protectively over her belly, Perhaps I'm just being overly sensitive due to the pregnancy. The vulnerability in her voice made Marcus's decision for him. He couldn't allow this decent, caring woman and her family to be destroyed by Lady Cordelia's machinations, no matter the personal cost. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And if you ever need additional perspective on palace security matters, I'm here to serve." Princess Catherine studied his face intently, and Marcus could see her sharp intelligence working behind her eyes. "Thank you, Captain. That's very reassuring to know." As she walked away, Marcus made his choice. That evening, he would find a way to warn Prince Edmund about the conspiracy, even if it meant destroying his own career and possibly his life. The opportunity came sooner than expected when Prince Edmund requested additional security for a late-night meeting in his private office. The prince was reviewing Foundation documents, and Marcus could see the strain of recent weeks in the man's face. "Working late again, Your Highness?" Marcus asked as he conducted a security sweep of the office. Prince Edmund looked up with tired eyes. "The Foundation's annual audit is coming up, and I want to make sure everything is perfect. We can't afford any questions about our financial management, especially with all the scrutiny royal charities face these days." The irony was painful. Prince Edmund was working himself to exhaustion to ensure his Foundation's integrity, unaware that false evidence was already being prepared to destroy his reputation regardless of the actual facts. "Your Highness," Marcus began carefully, "may I speak frankly about a security matter?" "Of course, Captain. What's on your mind?" Marcus closed the office door and activated the electronic privacy screen that blocked external surveillance devices. "Sir, I believe there may be a serious threat to your family, but it's not coming from outside the palace." Prince Edmund's expression grew instantly alert. "What kind of threat?" Taking a deep breath, Marcus related everything he had overheard in Lady Cordelia's study 3 days earlier. He watched as Prince Edmund's face went through a range of emotions: disbelief, shock, anger, and finally a grim determination. "You're certain of what you heard?" Prince Edmund asked when Marcus finished. "Absolutely certain, Your Highness. And today Sir Reginald attempted to remove me from the palace with a convenient assignment in Australia. They know I overheard something." Prince Edmund stood and walked to his window, looking out at the palace grounds where his children played during the day. 3 years of planning," he said quietly. "Catherine's been feeling that something was wrong lately, but I attributed it to pregnancy hormones and stress. I should have listened to her instincts." "What will you do, Your Highness?" Prince Edmund turned back to face Marcus, and the captain saw steel in the man's eyes that reminded him why the Wales family commanded such respect. "We're going to fight back, Captain, but we'll need to be very careful about how we proceed. If Lady Cordelia has been planning this for 3 years, we can't assume we know the full extent of her network or resources. I'm at your service, Your Highness, whatever you need. First, we need to document everything you overheard. Write it down exactly as you remember it, with times and dates. Then we need to identify who else might be involved and who we can trust absolutely." Prince Edmund moved to his safe and withdrew a secure communication device. "I'm going to contact some trusted allies outside the palace, people who can help us investigate this conspiracy and gather our own evidence. But Marcus, you need to understand the danger you're in now that you've chosen to warn us." "I understand, sir, but I couldn't stand by and watch your family be destroyed by lies." "Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen," Prince Edmund said with quiet intensity. "But first, we need to protect Catherine and the children. If Lady Cordelia is willing to use pregnancy and innocent children as weapons, there's no telling how far she'll go." As Marcus left Prince Edmund's office that night, he felt the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. He had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, choosing to side against the Queen Consort in a battle that would determine the future of the monarchy itself. But as he thought about Princess Catherine's worried face in the garden and the warmth in the Wales family's windows, he knew he had made the right choice. Now came the harder part, staying alive long enough to help them win. The next morning brought an unexpected twist that would change everything. Marcus arrived at the palace to find it buzzing with subdued activity. King Harold had suffered a stroke during the night and was in critical condition at the Royal Medical Facility. The news sent shockwaves through the palace staff, but Marcus realized with growing horror that this development would only accelerate Lady Cordelia's timeline. As acting Queen Regent, Lady Cordelia would now have unprecedented access to royal communications, security protocols, and decision-making processes. The conspiracy Marcus had overheard was no longer a future threat. It was becoming immediate reality. Prince Edmund appeared in the main corridor looking haggard and worried. When he spotted Marcus, he approached with careful casualness, speaking in low tones. "Captain, I need you to accompany me to the medical facility for security assessment. We'll have privacy to discuss our situation there." During the short drive to the secure medical building, Prince Edmund shared what he had learned during his sleepless night of investigation. "I contacted Lord Hampton, my old friend from university who now works in financial intelligence. He's discovered some disturbing patterns in recent months. Someone has been making sophisticated inquiries about our foundation's donor lists, grant recipients, and financial transactions." Marcus felt his blood run cold. They're not just planning to fabricate evidence. They're gathering real information to twist. Exactly. But there's more. Lord Hampton also found traces of a media coordination effort. Someone has been feeding carefully crafted stories to multiple tabloid sources, all designed to create a narrative of financial impropriety and personal scandal around Catherine and myself. As they arrived at the medical facility, Marcus could see the strain weighing on Prince Edmund. The man was facing his father's potential death while simultaneously discovering a conspiracy that threatened to destroy his family's future. Inside the facility, they found Princess Catherine sitting beside King Harold's bed, holding her father-in-law's hand while he lay unconscious, surrounded by medical equipment. Her pregnancy was beginning to show more prominently, and Marcus could see the emotional toll the crisis was taking on her. "How is he?" Prince Edmund asked softly, moving to his wife's side. "The doctors say the next 48 hours will be critical," Princess Catherine replied, her voice steady but her eyes red with tears. "If he survives, there may be significant cognitive impairment." They're being honest about the prognosis. Prince Edmund and Marcus exchanged glances. If King Harold died or became incapacitated, the succession protocols would place Prince Edmund much closer to the throne. Exactly the scenario Lady Cordelia wanted to prevent. "Catherine," Prince Edmund said gently, "I need to tell you something important about what's been happening in the palace." Over the next hour, Prince Edmund and Marcus explained the full scope of the conspiracy they had uncovered. Princess Catherine listened with growing shock and anger, her protective instincts as a mother clearly aroused when they described how Lady Cordelia planned to use the pregnancy and separate the children from their parents.
3 years, Princess Catherine said when they finished, her voice tight with controlled fury.
"She's been planning this since before Michael was born. Every family dinner, every private conversation, every moment when we thought we were safe in our own home, she was gathering intelligence to use against us. The question now is what we do about it," Prince Edmund said. "With father incapacitated, Cordelia has temporary authority as Queen Regent. She'll be able to access communications, influence security arrangements, and control much of the palace's daily operations." Marcus had been thinking about this problem throughout the night. "Your Highness, there might be a way to turn her own conspiracy against her. If we can gather evidence of her plot before she can execute it, we could expose her instead." "What do you mean?" Princess Catherine asked. "She's been careful to compartmentalize her planning, but there have to be communication records, financial trails for paying conspirators, and physical evidence of her activities. If we can collect that evidence without alerting her network, we might be able to prove the conspiracy before she can claim we're manufacturing our own scandal." Prince Edmund nodded thoughtfully. "It's risky, but you're right. Our best defense might be a preemptive offense." "But how do we gather evidence without being detected?" Princess Catherine asked. "If they're already suspicious of Captain Vale, won't they be monitoring our activities?" Marcus had been considering this challenge as well. "I think I might have a solution, but it would require help from an unexpected source." Both members of the Wales family looked at him expectantly. "Lady Margaret Thornfield," Marcus said, referring to King Harold's elderly aunt who lived in the palace's north wing. "She's been here longer than anyone, knows every secret passage and hidden room in the building, and most importantly, Lady Cordelia completely underestimates her because of her age." Princess Catherine's eyes lit up with understanding. "Aunt Margaret has always been sharper than people give her credit for, and she adores the children. If she knew they were being threatened, she'd do anything to help. The question is whether we can trust her with information this dangerous, Prince Edmund said. If Lady Cordelia discovers that we're organizing resistance, she might accelerate her timeline or take more drastic measures. Marcus had another idea forming. What if we don't tell Lady Margaret the full scope of the conspiracy initially? We could ask for her help with a security assessment of the palace's historical areas, which would give us legitimate reasons to access restricted spaces where evidence might be hidden. That afternoon, while maintaining their normal routines to avoid suspicion, the three conspirators arranged to meet with Lady Margaret in her private sitting room. The elderly woman, dressed in her characteristic purple silk and pearls, listened with growing shock as they carefully explained the situation. "That ambitious little serpent," Lady Margaret said with uncharacteristic venom when they finished. "I never liked her, you know." "There was always something calculating about the way she approached your father, Edmund. Too convenient, too perfectly timed after your mother's death." This was news to Prince Edmund. "You think her marriage to father was part of a longer-term plan?" "I'm certain of it," Lady Margaret replied firmly. "I've been watching palace intrigues for 70 years, dear boy. Cordelia's entire courtship was orchestrated by advisors who specialize in political marriages. The question is what larger interests she's representing." Princess Catherine leaned forward. "What do you mean, larger interests?" Lady Margaret moved to her writing desk and retrieved a folder she had clearly been keeping for some time. "I've been documenting unusual activities and visitors for the past several years, just as a matter of personal record. But looking at these patterns now, I can see a coordinated effort to influence royal policy and succession." The folder contained meticulously kept notes about meetings, phone calls, financial transactions, and personnel changes within the palace. Lady Margaret's attention to detail was remarkable, and Marcus realized they had found an invaluable ally. These records show regular contact between Lady Cordelia and representatives of the Conservative Royal Foundation, a group that opposes modernization of the monarchy. Lady Margaret explained. "They've been lobbying against every reform proposal that you and Catherine have supported, Edmund." Prince Edmund studied the documents with growing amazement. This suggests the conspiracy isn't just about personal power, it's about controlling the future direction of the monarchy itself. "Precisely," Lady Margaret agreed. "Your progressive approach to royal duties threatens their vision of a traditional hierarchical system. Removing your family from influence would clear the way for a more conservative succession." Marcus felt the pieces falling into place. That explains the sophistication of the operation and the resources they've been able to deploy. This isn't just Lady Cordelia acting alone. She's the front person for a larger political movement. "Which means we're facing more than just personal betrayal," Princess Catherine said grimly. "We're fighting for the soul of the monarchy itself." Lady Margaret closed the folder and looked at each of them seriously. "If we're going to expose this conspiracy, we'll need to be very careful about how we proceed. These people have been planning for years and have resources we can only guess at. But they've made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" Prince Edmund asked. "They've underestimated the power of truth and the loyalty of people who genuinely care about this institution," Lady Margaret said with quiet determination. "Now, let's discuss how we're going to bring them down." As evening fell over the palace, the four unlikely allies began planning their counterattack against a conspiracy that threatened not just the Wales family, but the entire future of the monarchy. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they were fighting for something worth the risk. Truth, justice, and the protection of innocent children, whose only crime was being born into the wrong family at the wrong time. The real battle was about to begin. The operation began at dawn 2 days later, while Lady Cordelia was attending emergency council meetings about King Harold's condition. Lady Margaret had provided detailed maps of the palace's forgotten passages and storage areas, spaces that hadn't been systematically searched in decades but might contain evidence of the conspiracy's communications and planning. Marcus moved through the narrow servants' corridors that ran behind the main palace walls, passages that had been used for centuries to allow staff to move invisibly throughout the building. His destination was Lady Cordelia's private office suite, where Lady Margaret had noticed unusual activity during evening hours when the area should have been empty. Using his security clearance, Marcus accessed the maintenance areas behind Lady Cordelia's office walls. The space was cramped and dusty, filled with old electrical conduits and ventilation systems, but it also contained something unexpected: recently installed electronic equipment that had no business being in a maintenance area. The devices appeared to be sophisticated recording and communication equipment, capable of monitoring conversations throughout the East Wing and transmitting data to external locations. Marcus carefully photographed everything with a secure camera provided by Prince Edmund's intelligence contacts, documenting what appeared to be an extensive surveillance network. Meanwhile, Princess Catherine was conducting her own investigation in the palace library, where Lady Margaret had recalled seeing Sir Reginald Blackthorne having private meetings with visitors who weren't on any official guest lists. The library's historical archives contained security logs going back several years, and Princess Catherine's academic background helped her identify patterns in the data that others might have missed. She discovered that on specific dates corresponding to major royal family events, there had been unusual numbers of maintenance visits and security assessments in areas of the palace where the Wales family lived and worked. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. Someone had been conducting systematic surveillance and intelligence gathering during moments when the family's guard was down. Prince Edmund was using his foundation's legitimate business relationships to investigate the financial aspects of the conspiracy. His contacts in international banking had helped him trace a series of shell companies and offshore accounts that appeared to be funneling money into media manipulation campaigns and political lobbying efforts. The financial trail was complex but revealing. Millions of pounds were being moved through accounts connected to the Conservative Royal Foundation, with payments going to tabloid journalists, private investigators, and political operatives across Europe. The scope of the operation was staggering, far beyond what Lady Cordelia could have financed personally. Lady Margaret, meanwhile, was using her decades of palace connections to identify which staff members might have been compromised or recruited into the conspiracy. But her informal network of longtime employees was providing information about unusual requests, changed loyalties, and suspicious activities that painted a picture of systematic infiltration. The elderly woman's investigation revealed that at least a dozen palace employees had been receiving payments from anonymous sources over the past 2 years. Some were in positions to monitor the Wales family's communications, others had access to financial records, and several worked in areas where they could plant surveillance devices or gather intelligence. By the end of the first week of investigation, the four allies had assembled a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy that was even more extensive than Marcus had initially realized from his overheard conversation. The plot involved not just Lady Cordelia and Sir Reginald, but also foreign political interests, conservative royal advocacy groups, and a network of compromised palace insiders. The evidence they had gathered was substantial, but Prince Edmund faced a crucial decision about how to use it. King Harold remained in a coma. Lady Cordelia's authority as Queen Regent was growing stronger each day, and the timeline for the conspiracy's execution appeared to be accelerating. The breakthrough came when Lady Margaret remembered a detail from her decades of palace observation. During her youth, she had discovered that the old palace telephone systems had never been fully modernized, meaning that certain communications were still being routed through antiquated switching equipment that automatically recorded calls for security purposes. The recordings are stored in the basement archives, Lady Margaret explained during one of their clandestine meetings. They're supposed to be destroyed after 5 years, but the archival system has been so poorly maintained that decades of recordings are still there, just sitting in storage. Marcus realized the implications immediately. If Lady Cordelia's phone conversations were recorded by the palace security system, we might have permanent evidence of her planning discussions. The team's next mission was to access the basement archives without alerting the conspiracy's network of palace insiders. This proved to be their most dangerous operation yet, as the basement areas were patrolled by security personnel who might be compromised. Using Lady Margaret's knowledge of the palace's service schedules, they planned their mission for a time when the basement would be minimally staffed. Princess Catherine remained in the upper levels as a lookout, maintaining normal activities while monitoring for any sign that their operation had been detected. Marcus and Prince Edmund descended into the labyrinthine basement storage areas, guided by Lady Margaret's detailed maps of the underground levels. The archives were vast, containing decades of accumulated documents, recordings, and security materials that chronicled the palace's entire modern history. Finding the specific recordings required hours of searching through poorly organized storage systems, but eventually they located the telecommunications archive section. The equipment was obsolete but functional, and after some technical difficulties, They managed to access recordings from the dates surrounding Marcus's overheard conversation. What they found exceeded their expectations. Not only did they recover clear recordings of Lady Cordelia's conversations with her lawyer and various conspirators, but they also discovered evidence of regular communications with foreign political operatives and detailed discussions of media manipulation strategies. The recordings provided undeniable proof of the conspiracy, but they also revealed something even more disturbing. The plot extended far beyond the Wales family. Lady Cordelia and her allies were planning to fundamentally reshape the monarchy, eliminating not just progressive voices, but anyone who might oppose their conservative vision of royal authority. As they prepared to leave the archives with their evidence, Marcus detected unusual activity in the security control room. Someone was conducting an unscheduled review of surveillance footage from the basement levels, and the timing suggested that their mission might have been discovered.
"We need to leave immediately," Marcus whispered to Prince Edmund. "I think we've been compromised." They quickly gathered their evidence and began moving toward the exit, but as they reached the main basement corridor, they encountered Sir Reginald Blackthorne, accompanied by 2 palace security guards that Marcus didn't recognize.
"Your Royal Highness," Sir Reginald said with cold politeness, "Lady Cordelia has been looking for you. She has some urgent matters to discuss regarding your father's medical condition." The confrontation that Marcus had been dreading was finally at hand. They had gathered the evidence they needed, but now they had to survive long enough to use it. Prince Edmund stepped forward with calm authority, and Marcus could see the royal training that had prepared him for exactly this kind of crisis. "Of course, Reginald. Captain Vale and I were just conducting a security assessment of the archives. You can never be too careful about protecting sensitive historical documents." "Indeed," Sir Reginald replied, but his eyes were studying both men with obvious suspicion. "I'm sure Lady Cordelia will be interested to hear about your otherness in these security matters." As they walked toward the elevator, Marcus knew that their window for action was closing rapidly. Lady Cordelia would soon realize exactly what they had discovered, and the real battle for the future of the monarchy was about to begin in earnest. The evidence was in their hands, but now came the most dangerous part: using it before the conspiracy could eliminate them entirely. The final confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. That very evening, as the 4 allies prepared to present their evidence to the Privy Council, Lady Cordelia made her move. Prince Edmund received an urgent summons to meet with her privately in the throne room, an unusual occasion that suggested the symbolic importance she placed on their encounter. Marcus accompanied Prince Edmund as his security detail, while Princess Catherine and Lady Margaret remained in secure locations with copies of all the evidence they had gathered. They had agreed that if the confrontation went badly, the truth would still survive to be revealed. The throne room was dimly lit when they arrived, with Lady Cordelia standing alone near the ancient seat of royal power. She had clearly been waiting for them, and her posture suggested complete confidence in her position. "Edmund," she said without preamble, "I know what you've been doing this past week. The question now is whether we can resolve this situation like civilized people, or whether it must become unpleasant." Prince Edmund stepped forward calmly. "Cordelia, I think the unpleasantness began 3 years ago, when you started planning to destroy my family. What I've been doing is defending them." Lady Cordelia smiled coldly. "Your family has become a threat to everything this monarchy represents. Your progressive ideas, Catherine's common background, your children's casual approach to royal protocol, you're undermining centuries of tradition and authority. We're trying to make the monarchy relevant and accessible to modern people," Prince Edmund replied. "That's not destruction, it's evolution." "It's weakness," Lady Cordelia snapped, her composed facade cracking slightly. "And weakness invites the kind of Republican sentiment that could destroy this institution entirely. Better to remove the source of that weakness before it spreads." Marcus watched the exchange with growing tension, aware that Sir Reginald and several unidentified security personnel had positioned themselves at various exits from the throne room. Lady Cordelia clearly felt confident enough to be completely honest about her intentions. "You've been very thorough in your investigation," Lady Cordelia continued, "but you're missing the larger picture. This isn't just about your family or even about the succession. We're fighting for the survival of monarchy itself.
in an age that increasingly questions hereditary authority.
By fabricating scandals and destroying innocent people? Prince Edmund asked.
By whatever means necessary,
Lady Cordelia replied without hesitation. Your father understood this when he married me. He knew that maintaining royal authority would require difficult choices and uncomfortable compromises.
This revelation shocked both Prince Edmund and Marcus. Father was part of your conspiracy? Lady Cordelia laughed bitterly. Harold was never part of anything. He was a figurehead, just as you would have been if you had accepted your proper role.
But your independence made you dangerous, and dangerous elements must be eliminated. Marcus realized that Lady Cordelia was confirming every detail of the conspiracy they had uncovered, apparently believing that she was in complete control of the situation. It was a mistake that would prove costly.
The evidence you've gathered won't matter, Lady Cordelia continued. Tomorrow morning, the financial irregularities in your foundation will be revealed to the press. By afternoon, the recording of your private dinner conversations will surface. Within a week, additional scandals will emerge that will make it impossible for you to continue in any public role. What about Catherine and the children? Prince Edmund asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Catherine will be given the opportunity to quietly divorce you and retire from public life with appropriate financial support. The children will be raised properly, without the corrupting influence of your progressive nonsense.
It was at this moment that Princess Catherine's voice cut through the tension from the throne room's gallery above. I'm afraid those plans will need to be revised, Cordelia. Everyone looked up to see Princess Catherine, Lady Margaret, and Lord Hampton, Prince Edmund's intelligence contact, standing in the gallery with recording equipment and cameras. They had been documenting the entire conversation, gathering the final pieces of evidence needed to expose the conspiracy. Lady Cordelia's composure finally shattered completely. You manipulative little... The only manipulation here has been yours, Princess Catherine interrupted, moving down the gallery stairs with serene authority despite her advanced pregnancy. For 3 years, you've been planning to destroy our family based on lies and fabricated evidence. But now the truth is going to come out. Lord Hampton stepped forward, holding a thick folder. Lady Cordelia, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted sedition against the crown. The evidence we've gathered includes recordings of your conversations, financial records of your illegal activities, and documentation of your network of co-conspirators. Sir Reginald moved toward his employer, but Marcus blocked his path. I wouldn't, sir. The palace is currently surrounded by Metropolitan Police and Royal Protection officers who are not part of your network. Every exit is monitored. Lady Cordelia looked around the throne room with growing desperation, finally realizing that her carefully constructed conspiracy was collapsing around her. You don't understand what you're destroying, she said to Prince Edmund. Without strong traditional authority, this monarchy won't survive another generation. Maybe, Prince Edmund replied, but it certainly won't survive another generation of the kind of corruption and manipulation you represent. The next several hours were a whirlwind of arrests, evidence presentation, and emergency meetings, as the full scope of the conspiracy was revealed to palace officials and government ministers. The network of co-conspirators was extensive, involving not just palace insiders but also foreign political operatives and conservative advocacy groups that had been working to influence British royal succession for their own purposes. King Harold, when he finally regained consciousness 2 weeks later, was devastated to learn about his wife's betrayal, but grateful that his family had been protected. His recovery was slow but steady, and he made it clear that he fully supported Prince Edmund and Princess Catherine's approach to modernizing the monarchy. Lady Cordelia and Sir Reginald were ultimately convicted of conspiracy and sedition, receiving substantial prison sentences. The international investigation that followed their arrests uncovered similar plots in other European monarchies, leading to a broader crackdown on attempts to manipulate royal succession for political purposes. Marcus was promoted to head of Royal Protection Services, a position that allowed him to implement new security protocols designed to prevent similar conspiracies from developing within the palace. His courage in exposing the plot earned him the personal gratitude of the entire Wales family. Lady Margaret became something of a palace legend, her investigation skills earning her an unofficial role as historical advisor to the security services. She delighted in telling visitors about how she helped save the monarchy from those who would have destroyed it from within. Princess Catherine gave birth to a healthy daughter 3 months later, and the baby's christening became a celebration not just of new life, but of the renewal of trust within the royal family. The name they chose, Victoria Truth Wales, reflected their commitment to honesty and transparency in royal service. 6 months after the conspiracy's exposure, Prince Edmund stood in the same throne room where Lady Cordelia had revealed her true intentions, but now he was addressing a gathering of Commonwealth representatives about the future of the monarchy. His speech emphasized the importance of institutions that evolve with their people, while maintaining their core values of service and duty. The greatest threat to any institution, he concluded, is not external opposition, but internal corruption. When those charged with protecting something betray that trust, they do more damage than any outside enemy ever could. Our obligation is to remain worthy of the trust placed in us, no matter how difficult that may be. As the applause filled the ancient hall, Marcus stood at his post nearby, vigilant as always, but now confident that the family he protected was worth protecting. The crown's shadow had been lifted, and the light of truth had proven stronger than the darkness of deception. The Wales family had not just survived the conspiracy against them. They had emerged stronger, more united, and more committed than ever to serving their people with integrity and honor. And in an age when institutional authority was increasingly questioned, they had proven that honesty and transparency were not signs of weakness, but sources of genuine strength. The monarchy would continue, not because it had eliminated its critics or silenced opposition, but because it had chosen truth over convenience and courage over comfort. That, Marcus reflected, was the kind of institution worth protecting with one's life.